goodnight. Like she had some kind of a sense. I think she had a sense many times that he wasn't okay, you know? She would tell me that sometimes she would find him in his bathroom looking kind of out of it or holding on to. It was only her and her dad. So I think she got a lot of intimate time up there with him. No one else was up there.
What if the man who changed music forever had a secret locked in the very house he left behind, one that even his own family guarded for 4 decades? Today, that mystery is finally being cracked open. Meet Riley Kira, Elvis Presley's granddaughter, who is stepping out of the shadows to reveal the most intimate, unheard stories about the king. For over 40 years, the upstairs of Graceland, yes, the mansion that has been a shrine for fans, was a sealed, untouched time capsule. No photos, no tours, no exceptions. Riley is now breaking that silence, and what she's sharing is nothing short of astonishing. From hidden rooms that no one has ever seen, to sealed letters that whisper of Elvis's private thoughts, to secret recordings that could change how we hear his music, Riley Kira is turning the page on a chapter that was locked away for generations. She'll answer the burning questions that have haunted fans for decades. Did a tunnel run beneath the house? Is there music that the world has never heard? And why does one room still look exactly as it did the day he died? Join us as we journey beyond the polished surface of a legend and uncover the emotional truths that only the king's own granddaughter can share. This is Elvis's granddaughter finally revealed everything about Elvis. Stay tuned. What we discover will change everything you thought you knew about the king. For more than 4 decades, the second floor of the estate has remained a silent sentinel, its doors locked against the curious eye. No photographs, no video footage, no casual whispers have ever penetrated the threshold that keeps Elvis's private world intact. The quiet has become almost legendary, a hush that has gathered around the house for years, an invisible wall that keeps the past frozen in place. Now, for the first time in memory of the king, a new voice steps forward to share what has stayed hidden. Riley Kira, his granddaughter, and the custodian of that still present echo. Graceland, as it is commonly known, began not as a stage for stardom, but as a modest colonial revival home, erected in 1939 by a local printing magnate. The house sat on quiet grounds, surrounded by fields, its white columns and arched windows giving it a dignified yet unassuming grace. When a restless 22-year-old Elvis Presley purchased the estate in 1957 for a modest down payment of $12,500, he sought more than a home. He craved a retreat from the relentless glare of fame. The quiet, the privacy, the unpretentious architecture, all of it drew him in. But it would soon become a canvas upon which he would paint his own identity, a living testament to his restless creative spirit. Over the next 20 years, the house transformed from a simple refuge into a vibrant extension of the man who lived within. The jungle room, with its green shag carpeting that reached the ceiling and its carved wooden furnishings, emerged as a sanctuary where Elvis could slip into a rainforest-like hush, where he recorded some of his final tracks, including the haunting Moody Blue. A meditation garden planted in 1964 behind the house would later become the resting place for the king, his parents, his grandmother, and his daughter Lisa Marie Presley. Fans now wander the quiet stones of that garden, leaving flowers, notes, and tokens of reverence in a moment of silent reflection. Since opening its doors to the public in 1982, the estate has welcomed more than 20 million visitors, becoming the second most visited home in the United States after the White House. Tourists, pilgrims, and fans of all ages walk through the rooms that display Elvis's awards, jumpsuits, vintage cars, and countless artifacts of his life. Yet beneath all the displays, one part remains closed: the upstairs. The second floor, with its rooms preserved exactly as they were on the day of Elvis's death in 1977, has been locked, untouched, a time capsule that has resisted the pull of history. Riley's connection to this locked world is both familial and intimate. Growing up as the daughter of Lisa Marie and the granddaughter of Elvis, she has spent countless hours on the estate, hearing stories whispered from one generation to the next. In the quiet afternoons, while tourists meandered below, Riley would sneak, with her cousins, past the heavy doors, peeking into a world that had frozen itself in time. She remembers the sense of awe and reverence she felt standing in a room where Elvis had read, written, and mourned. The silence was not only respectful but almost palpable, a living memory of the man who once filled these rooms with music and laughter. The study, perhaps the most intimate of the hidden rooms, was a small, dark space lined with deep wood shelves. Here lay books on numerology, Christian theology, and Eastern mysticism, topics that, according to family lore, fascinated Elvis. In the margins of some volumes, Riley spotted handwritten notes, prayer-like fragments, unfinished song lyrics, and scattered thoughts that seemed to mirror the turbulent journey of a superstar. One page, she recalls, simply repeated the word free over and over, a haunting mantra that reflected perhaps the inner yearning of a man who felt the weight of fame. Beside the study, the bedroom where Elvis slept remains untouched, his silk sheets still draped over the bed, the clock above the bed frozen at the time the paramedics arrived. Riley tells of the stillness that pervades the room, the faint scent of his cologne that lingers in the air, the feeling that the presence of Elvis lingers just beyond the reach of sight. On one of the nightstands, a Bible with handwritten annotations sits beside a stack of pain medication bottles, some still full. Tucked beneath the bed, a shoebox marked, "Do not open," held letters, one addressed to Lisa Marie, another simply stating, "To whoever finds this after I'm gone." These items are profoundly personal, and Riley acknowledges that sharing them would breach the intimacy the family has preserved for decades. The adjacent bathroom, the place where Elvis passed, remains as it was, a testament to the moment of his final breath. Riley, honoring the sanctity of the space, chooses not to describe the room in detail. She affirms, however, that it has never been altered, that towels and fixtures remain untouched, a physical memory of a man who once filled the room with laughter and song. Rumors have long circulated that the second floor was sealed to conceal a staged death scene, or a look-alike, that Elvis had escaped to South America. Riley, in her calm, firm narrative, puts those speculations to rest. She emphasizes that the order to lock the upstairs came from Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, who wanted nothing to be a publicity stunt. Instead, it was a family decision, a private sanctuary maintained by Vernon himself. A space he kept sealed not for fame, but to keep the memory of his son alive for those who could appreciate the depth of his journey. What Riley shares, even through brief mentions of rooms and artifacts, is a revelation of her grandfather's humanity, a side of the king that was not always seen through the lens of his public image. For Riley, the locked rooms are not a vault of secrets, but a place where the king never truly left. Every book, every sheet of silk, every faint scent, all serve as a living archive, a gentle reminder that some memories are meant to be guarded with respect. And so, with the world finally given a glimpse behind a door that had remained closed for 40 years, the narrative of Graceland expands beyond its public displays. It becomes a story of reverence, of family devotion, and of the delicate balance between remembrance and privacy. Riley's voice echoes in the halls of the estate, a new chapter that honors the past while protecting the sanctity of the memories that define a king's true legacy. The upstairs remains a quiet sanctuary, a place where Elvis retreated to find solitude. In a small, tucked-away corner at the end of the hallway, Riley has discovered a room that felt like a secret garden. Low lighting, cushions spread across the floor, and an old sound machine humming softly creates an atmosphere of stillness. This is what Riley calls the quiet room, a meditation space he himself designed for prayer, reflection, and escape. No photographs capture it, no fan accounts mention it, and until Riley spoke of it, no one knew it existed. In that room, Elvis sought the peace that eluded him in a world that never paused for him. Riley explains why she decided to bring this hidden part of the estate into the light now. For years, the upstairs remained silent out of necessity. Lisa Marie, his mother, guarded that portion of the house with fierce tenderness. It was too painful, too sacred, too unresolved. After Lisa Marie's passing, Riley found herself not only as the owner of Graceland, but also as the voice of a family legacy. She felt the time was right to share the parts of the story that had never been told, not for spectacle, but for understanding. The upstairs will stay closed to the public, but the stories that unfold within it can offer fans a deeper emotional connection to Elvis without compromising privacy. Even so, some fans continue to wonder, is Elvis still alive? The enduring theory that he faked his death and escaped through a tunnel beneath Graceland has taken on almost mythic status. Rumors of a secret passage connecting the main house to the rear of the property have circulated for decades. Some former employees claim there are things even they are not shown. An anonymous journalist in 1987 claimed to find a partially concealed concrete entry near the rear carport, though no photographs ever surfaced. This narrative is fueled by Elvis's increasing privacy in the 1970s. Microphones swept for bugs, fewer public appearances, a sudden withdrawal from the public eye. For believers, this withdrawal was the prelude to a plan, a way to vanish into the shadows of his own sanctuary. The lack of physical proof does not quell speculation. The first major sighting came in 1978, a year after his death, when a man resembling Elvis boarded a plane at Memphis International Airport under the name John Burroughs, an alias Elvis had used on tour. A tourist in 1984 took a photo of a groundskeeper behind the house, and fans swore it was the king. Subsequent sightings at a DMV in California, at a Burger King in Texas, watching an impersonator show in Nevada added fuel to the fire. Each claim hinges on blurry images and unverified anecdotes. Yet the mystery persists because of what remains unseen. Elvis's final days were shrouded in secrecy, and the upstairs remained sealed. Other oddities feed the conspiracy. The death certificate spelling of his middle name, Aaron, matches the gravestone but diverges from the legal name Aaron. For some, this typographical mismatch is a deliberate signal, a clue that the man buried there was not the king himself. Others point to the absence of forensic evidence that he lived beyond 1977. No DNA matches, no fingerprints, no verified communications. The autopsy was performed, his body viewed by family, the funeral was public. Still, the silence created a vacuum that invites imagination. When a life that lived so publicly is left with unanswered questions, fans find themselves crafting narratives that keep the king's spirit alive in their minds. Riley remains a steward of that balance. She acknowledges the power of mystery in sustaining Elvis's legacy. Her role is not to dismantle rumors, but to protect what mattered to him, his emotional legacy and the sanctity of the sealed rooms. She believes some questions are meant to stay unanswered. Perhaps there is no tunnel. Perhaps the sightings are mistaken identities. Perhaps the typo was a simple correction. Maybe the most rebellious act of a man who spent his life under a spotlight was to hide one part of himself from the world. In inheriting the kingdom of Graceland, she must choose which stories are safe to share and which remain quiet. Rumors also swirl around the idea that Elvis fathered children beyond Lisa Marie. Alleged heirs step forward with DNA samples, birth certificates, side-by-side photographs that highlight uncanny resemblances. While most claims are dismissed or ignored, they recur with each new generation of fans, adding another layer of intrigue. The Presley estate is structured with legal protections that make it nearly impossible to contest, yet the possibility of undisclosed heirs still lingers in public discourse. The question of who controls Elvis's empire today is as complex as the myths that surround him. The estate's legal structure shields it from ordinary litigation, but even Priscilla Presley is speaking out amid her own legal battle. She faces lawsuits from those claiming lineage and rights to a share of the Presley estate, though most have been dismissed. These legal battles keep the story alive, keeping the spotlight on Graceland as a living museum and a battleground for legacy. In the end, Riley Keough does not offer definitive answers. She understands that part of the king's enduring power lies in mystery. Some people find comfort in the certainty of his death. Others cherish the possibility that the king slipped away in the night, hidden in his own granddaughter's quiet room. Whether or not a tunnel exists, whether the sightings were mistaken, whether the typo was deliberate, or whether unknown heirs claim a stake in the Presley estate, these questions add texture to a narrative that refuses to be fully explained. The sealed rooms of Graceland remain a testament to a man who, for all his public rebellion, may have hidden one part of himself as a quiet act of defiance. The sealed rooms upstairs are a constant source of speculation. Riley Keough, who inherited the estate after Lisa Marie Presley's death in 2023, has confirmed that these rooms remain untouched. She described them as frozen in time, a living archive that refuses to move. While she has never given a formal tour, she has let a handful of archivists peek behind the curtains. Those who have spent decades cataloging every book, photograph, and piece of equipment that once hovered in Elvis's personal sphere. Their accounts echo a common refrain. The contents of the bedroom, the study, even the bathroom have never been fully scanned or cataloged. The mystery is not merely about dust and old furniture. It is about the possibility that Elvis's own private thoughts and creations are still locked behind unlabeled boxes and sealed steel doors. One anonymous former estate employee shared on a fan forum that a real tape player was found in Elvis's upstairs study, accompanied by a small stack of unlabeled tapes. The claim aligns with known facts about Elvis's habit of recording in his home. He would often play the tape player into the late hours, pressing the record button with a single finger while humming melodies in his own voice. Those recordings were intended for personal review, for collaboration with close producers, or as an outlet for the creative process. No one had publicly documented the existence of those tapes, and the estate never confirmed the story. Yet the mere suggestion of hidden, unheard material stokes the imagination of every fan who dreams of an unearthly performance from the king. Riley's stewardship goes beyond guarding these physical relics. She actively manages the Elvis Presley Trust, a legal framework that controls finances, property, image licensing, and intellectual property rights. It is a complex entity that not only handles the day-to-day operations of Graceland, but also stands as a gatekeeper for any claim to the Presley legacy. The trust demands strict procedures. Any alleged heir must produce verifiable DNA evidence backed by an undisputed chain of custody and undergo a rigorous legal review. The few claims that have made it to court, like the man who sought a court order to exhume Elvis's body or the woman who submitted a hair sample, were dismissed because the evidence did not meet the trust's stringent standards. Thus, the legal ground remains solid, though the possibility of undisclosed heirs continues to lurk in the shadows, feeding rumors and speculation. Despite her role as trustee, Riley has chosen not to engage in the sensationalism that the media and fan forums thrive on. She has refused to open the second floor of Graceland to tourists or to allow cameras into private family spaces. She has also sidestepped any offers for reality television or dramatized retellings of Elvis's life. For Riley, the priority is to honor the man behind the myth. She believes that preserving the integrity of his personal history is a more powerful tribute than turning his story into a marketable spectacle. That philosophy manifests in her support for new educational partnerships. She has worked with universities to incorporate Elvis studies into curricula that examine fame, cultural impact, and the evolution of music industries. These collaborations offer students an opportunity to explore the cultural forces that shaped the king's era without compromising his privacy. The decision to focus on digital preservation is especially striking in an age where every artifact can be digitized, shared, and monetized. Riley has overseen the meticulous digitization of Elvis's official archives, photographs, official recordings, and promotional materials that RCA and Sony have released in boxed sets over the years. Each box set is a curated collection, carefully selected for commercial viability. Riley's digital archive extends further. She has appointed a team of archivists to scan every document, book, and tape that has never been cataloged. The process is painstaking. Each tape must be identified, labeled, and stored in a climate-controlled vault. Even simple items like Elvis's beloved guitar or his handwritten lyric sheets are cataloged with the same rigor, ensuring that no artifact is overlooked. Yet the very silence surrounding the sealed rooms fuels the persistence of the lost recordings narrative. While RCA and Sony have issued alternate takes and unreleased material, these releases are the result of deliberate curation. Elvis's own personal vault remains comparatively guarded. For fans, that silence is a kind of accusation. If a musician of Elvis's stature has not opened his personal archive to the world, perhaps something extraordinary is hidden within. The sealed rooms serve as a blank canvas on which each new theory can be painted. Bootleg releases have added another layer to the story. In the 1990s, a cassette circulated claiming to contain "This Is Goodbye," a ballad supposedly recorded just weeks before Elvis's death. It was later debunked when the voice was matched to a known impersonator, yet it did nothing to dampen the hunger for new material. Every tape that appears on underground markets, whether an alternate version of a known song or a mysterious outtake, has sparked a flurry of debate. Some fan-led analyses find similarities in vocal timbre and phrasing that suggest authenticity, while others point out production quirks or the presence of background noises that betray a studio setting. The debate often hinges on a single detail: the source of the audio. If it originates from a legitimate estate archive, it is a legitimate part of Elvis's creative output. If not, it remains a counterfeit echo. What keeps the lost track theory alive, however, is not just the existence of these bootlegs, but the persistent silence from the estate. While the King's official releases have come and gone, Graceland's private storage remains an untouched vault. Archivists report that certain areas of Elvis's bedroom, study, and even his own personal locker in the basement still hold unsorted boxes of books, tapes, and personal documents. These items could include rough piano sessions, vocal demos, or even private letters that never found their way into the public eye. The discovery of a tape player in the study is perhaps the most tantalizing lead, as it hints at a hidden trove of raw, intimate performances that Elvis himself recorded for his own ears. For Riley, the challenge is to balance this unspoken promise of hidden gems with the duty to protect the integrity of the trust and the estate's legal standing. She has spoken about the need to keep the contents of certain storage areas untouched and described her own intuition that she feels a connection to the King's personal artifacts. Archivists echo that sentiment, describing the experience of handling an unlabeled tape as both eerie and exhilarating. It is a reminder that the man who ruled the world of rock and roll still kept his most personal moments locked away, and that those moments could hold the key to a new era of understanding his creative genius. When the estate announced the discovery of the tape player, no official confirmation ever surfaced. Still, the story has taken root in the fan community because it fits neatly with everything known about Elvis's recording habits. He was known to record himself singing casually at home, sometimes to review his voice, other times to share rough drafts with close collaborators. Those tapes were not meant for release. They were personal and perhaps deeply private. Even Elvis's former producer, Felton Jarvis, once said that Presley recorded far more than RCA ever released. He spoke of late-night tapes and rough piano sessions that were kept off the label's radar because Elvis didn't want anyone hearing them yet, or ever. Whether those recordings survived and still sit boxed in a cabinet somewhere upstairs is the question no one seems able to answer definitively. For Riley, every decision she makes is a brushstroke on the ever-expanding canvas of the King's legacy. She chooses to keep the sealed rooms untouched, to guard the vaults of music that may or may not exist, and to preserve the trust that protects the Presley name from fraud. She does so with a quiet determination that echoes the King's own quiet confidence, an unspoken promise that the true story of Elvis will be revealed not in sensational headlines, but in the careful, measured unveiling of truth that fans have long awaited. Riley stood at the threshold of the basement's concrete door, the hinges rattling softly as she pushed it open. Dust motes swirled in the shaft of light from the single bare bulb, and the air carried a faint scent of old paper and leather. The room behind her was a living archive, boxes piled high, each wrapped in a different shade of faded brown paper, some marked only with a few cryptic initials. The weight of silence pressed against her shoulders. It was a silence that had grown louder with every year the estate held its breath, awaiting a revelation that might alter the public's understanding of the King's legacy.